Hello, hello, hello. This is Misty Magdalena Grace with the new and improved version of Healthy and Wealthy and Wise, where we talk about spirituality, psychedelics, plant medicine, microdosing, and really that journey within to finding your best innate wisdom, to your best health, your best wealth through all sorts of inner child healing, trauma release, grief recovery, overcoming addictions, and working with the mind, the body, and spirit. So go ahead, leave a review, subscribe, download. We look forward to your feedback. Thanks for tuning in today. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Some of you saw me yesterday. I was actually kicking off the month announcing this big topic. If you have been paying attention, you already know the drill, but if you haven't, if this is your first time watching or listening, my name is Magdalena Grace, and I am focused this month for the fifth year in a row. Fifth year in a row. We started in 2020, allowing suicide awareness to be the only focus for the whole month. And each year I've had compelling interviews. If you want to go back, you can go back to YouTube, iTunes, and listen to all of the compelling interviews. And sometimes I even have repeat guests. I have a couple of those this year. And we're getting ready for the penultimate event, the September 21st. That's going to be the big event here in Fallbrook, California, San Diego, if you don't know what that is. And again, I'm the host of the show. I'm also a local healing practitioner here in North County, San Diego. And I've been amassing an amazing network of friends and people in grief, people in recovery, people in the addiction realm, people in all sorts of realms, including coaching. So it was really cool. I'm just going to dive right in here, Carole. I met Carole last year on LinkedIn, and I don't even remember, how it is when you meet someone, you're like, how did that all happen again? And to me, I now say it was a divine appointment, because Carole has become a friend, a colleague, a neighbor, someone who's really made an impact already in my life in just a year. It was actually, I think, a year ago and next week, thereabouts, where we had our first get to know you call. And Carole's just so inspiring. And so I'm going to have her speak at my event on September 21st. I'll reiterate what that is about later. She's going to be one of our primary speakers. So I wanted to have her on my podcast. Her story is powerful and definitely going to be one that you're going to want to share with others, especially if you know a parent who have maybe lost a child to suicide. So Carole, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you now. Carole is a coach who's been coaching for over 20 years, and she basically helps specialize in helping people live a life that they would love. So they're creating a vision, and they're casting that net and going for it. And like I already shared, she is also a mom who has lost a child to suicide, and it was a major turning point in your life, Carole. And I'd love for you to share your story with that. And thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. As we all know, nothing happens in a vacuum. And my life, and this is when I had 3 children at home. So my youngest daughter was 15, my son was 20, and my eldest daughter, Corrine, was 25. I'd been in business with my husband, and we'd had our ups and downs, but things at that point were falling apart. And I discovered that he was not telling me the truth about a number of our business transactions. So I was dealing with that. But at the same time, Corrine, who had graduated summa cum laude from NYU and was a talented dancer with Merce Cunningham, she had returned home because she couldn't find a job. And she was beautiful, she was brilliant, and she was also bipolar. And we were in a very strange position at that time because we actually owned a yacht, but we couldn't pay our mortgage. And I was going out taking temp jobs just to buy groceries. And Corrine had a psychologist that we got her to, but it was usually only like once a month or twice a month because we knew she had a problem. And he wanted her to come in 3 times a week for $150 a time. and that was like all I was earning to save to buy groceries with. So it just was not possible. So we knew that she had a problem, but we didn't know what to do about it. And then one day I picked up my youngest daughter from the train station and brought her home, and she went to the house first, and she began yelling because we found Corinne had taken her own life. And even when it's not expected, when you don't know what to do, it's a very difficult thing. And everybody's story is different at that point. What I knew is that I had to get away from what was going on in the house, which was just not healthy. And so I I took a job 2 weeks after my daughter's funeral. And I did not tell anybody about what was going on, because you can imagine I was thinking, if they have any idea, because that was followed by a full bankruptcy as well as a divorce, all within a single year. So I kept it to myself because I still had two more children. I had to get a job and move forward. But I knew something had to change. And you talk about divine intervention. Well, it was several months after I'd gotten into my own place that a friend told me about a landmark education weekend. And then two more friends. Now, none of these people knew each other, but three friends who did not know each other all told me I should go. And I didn't really know, I didn't have a lot of extra money at that time. I was just scraping by, but I knew this was important. So I found the money, I went, and that weekend became a time that I learned to pay attention to what I was doing in life. And it launched me into another course and another course. And basically that's what got me into coaching in the first place. Was I had to find out what was going on and what I could do about it. And I understand how sometimes there's a bigger picture and we don't see it in the moment. But I believe we're on our own life journey, and that we can take charge of our life. And that's led me to where I'm at today. But and as I say, thank you, because I normally don't tell people about this. I've gone through much of my life not talking about it. And I think it has to be said, because it is a huge problem, and people need support, even when it's both the person who is taking their own life as well as the people around them. They all need support.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I have found my own journey in, not having lost a daughter, to suicide, and we can never compare, right? It's like the rule number one that I learned in grief, and even just in life. We can't really walk in anybody else's shoes officially. However, what I can say is when I had that experience, and it sounds like you did too, you didn't really have anyone who had like a recovery plan for you and your family, right? You didn't maybe have the right resources also, right, to spend the money on. I can totally appreciate that. I think similar to you. I filed bankruptcy 2 years later after my first suicide loss, and I was a wreck. And I just, I didn't really grin and bear it. I just was in a fog, and didn't know, and yeah, didn't want to talk to anybody about it. So I'd be curious to ask you if you even, again, share what you want to share, and I respect it, and maybe it hasn't even occurred to you, but knowing what you know now, and even some of the conversations we've had, what kind of tools or resources do you have liked to have had at your disposal? Do you think that would have maybe helped? Any thoughts on that?
One thing I would love to have had is some additional psychiatric help. That at that point I had to pay for it. I think there may be more support things available now, but at that time there weren't. It was just on us to come up with it. And that would have been helpful, as well as people who could be understanding. And I say that because in my coaching, I was often assigned clients who had also lost a child. And I did not blurt out my background, but inevitably the day would come when they would say, "You don't understand what it's like to lose a child." And I would say, "Well, as a matter of fact, I do."
Wow.
And so I found that, and I had one friend who knew her son was not psychologically well, and she had been silently going through agony as to what to do for him. And I was the only one she could tell. After he died, she said, "I feel relieved." And that's not a comfortable thing to share with people, but it was her truth. And and I could fully understand, because when you're going through as a parent and saying, "What can I do?" and you don't have any answers, then you can see that this was almost inevitable. And so she shared that with me, and I could just hug her and say, "I fully understand that." And because we all need assurance that we're a good person. And she needed that assurance that it wasn't her fault. She happened to have been his mother and was not in control of what happened.
Yeah, so true, so true. And I know you said yourself, you kept it to yourself and you didn't want to share it. I felt the same way. I guess I'll share from my example and then give you some moments to maybe ponder and reflect your own response. But I remember going to the funeral of the first suicide, uh, I guess, funeral that I ever went to, and knowing that it was Catholic. And again, I'm not here to diss on religion at all or anything or systems, but inside of me, having been raised in a religion myself, I thought of the whole, the negative belief systems around suicide and what would happen for them. I'm not going to go into it, but I think if you're listening, you know what I'm saying, but not saying is, it's a bad thing. It's a wrong thing. And so for me, being a good girl myself in my belief system, I didn't want to think about what was happening. I didn't want to talk about it. You just sweep things under the rug and you keep things to yourself. And I know for me, that created a road that led me down to addiction and hating myself and living in fear and having a lot of guilt, shame. And that was my experience and my way of what happened as a result of me keeping it to myself.
Mhm.
To your point, I even had a therapist once, and I got fired by the therapist because I think I had too many problems. No joke. So it came at a cost, is what I'm trying to say. So when you had that belief or that fear or whatever you want to call it of keeping it to yourself, what do you think was going on for you? Like, have you seen it looking back now?
Well, when I didn't talk about it, a lot of it was because I needed a job. That I had to have a job. And you'd have to say, would you hire somebody who just lost their child to suicide and was going through divorce and bankruptcy? You might not think that person was very stable. And now I didn't take a challenging job. Later on, I took more things where I could be more self-expressive. I just needed a job that would pay me well enough and I could show up at 9 and leave at 5 and just smile in between and do my job. I couldn't have taken any additional challenge at that point. but that was really my reason for not saying it. And it kind of became a habit. And well, part of the reason I didn't say it too, because I found this when I went to that first landmark forum, because one of the things they do is have you take out your emotions and your feelings and your judgments and just say, here's what happened. And I could say about my life, here's what happened. And the result would be people coming up to me and saying, oh, I'm so sorry. And I realized that I was the one in charge of my own life. And that's not how I was choosing to go through life. I couldn't spend a lifetime of, oh, I'm so sorry. Now, I know that can be difficult to hear, because what do you say when somebody has this to share? And I'm not sure, each person is different. But if you're in that place where you can open it up to discussing more about their own feelings, about their next steps, about where they're going from here, because once it's already happened, it's happened. They still have a life. They still have next steps. They still have something to go forward with. And I believe that's part of the cure, is having a place to go forward that you can say, this is what's true for me. This is where I want to go.
Beautiful. Well, and you're a part of the hope and healing that I want to bring this month. We'll sort of transition to some of the things that you can share with your own work that you do. But I just want to remind people, if you haven't checked out our mission at the Lotus Throne and our foundation that we're launching this month, we want to break the generational cycles of addiction and suicide and be the change we want to see in the world by opening people's hearts and minds to the topics. And maybe at some point, even give hope and healing, as opposed to I don't even know what you call that. Like what you shared, I remember, because I've lost so many, not just to suicide, but to addiction. And there's a book called The Grief Recovery Handbook that says all of the things that you shouldn't say after someone's had a loss of any kind. And even though, I'm sorry, sounds like a really good, meaningful thing, to your point, we hear these things, they come out of people's mouths. It's like a knee-jerk reaction. I don't even know if you have any thoughts on what you would recommend someone saying if they've heard someone say that, or maybe what you wish you would have heard that would have at least maybe helped be more nourishing for you.
That's a great question. And as I feel back into that, is more of an understanding to be there with that person, to go beyond the, oh, I'm so sorry. But it could be, depending upon how well you know the person, do you want to talk about it? Because that opens it up to hear what's really going on with them. Because they can be anywhere from blaming themselves to having to get on with life, as I did. I mean, I could see life was still around me with my other children. I needed to keep going. And people will be in their own place about it. And that takes some internal strength to take a deep breath and be willing to listen to whatever comes out.
Yeah.
It could be deep grief. It could be wanting understanding in a different way. But that is a great question. And at some point, this is where I like to take people into a vision of an ideal life, because as long as you're still breathing, you have life ahead of you. And you are the one who can direct where that life is going to go. So, and this is something we've talked about, that one of the cures, I believe, for suicide is for all people to gather that understanding and talk about a future life and know that you can envision it, even if you don't know how in the moment. You can envision it and you can move forward, because a true suicide prevention is countered by hope, is by people having a hope for the future. And we don't have any injections of hope, but I do believe it's something that we can begin to create with each other, is hope and vision to move into a good future that is an expression of ourselves.
So perfect. And that's a perfect segue. I just want to remind, if anybody is watching or just joining us, whether live on the replay, this is Carole Hodges and I talking about first, we shared with you her story and her loss and her daughter, and I just want to acknowledge also Carole, because I think this has got to like sit in with people, especially as she shares her hopeful, visionary conversation with us next. She went through the loss of a daughter in a very tragic way. I mean, there's no quote unquote easy way, but I'm just going to say that was, definitely something that was tragic. Then she had bankruptcy and a divorce in 1 year's time. So that says a lot about you, Carole, and who you are and who you've become. And it goes right along with my own journey. The two most important days in your life, the quote on the screen, the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. And part of that why, if you've ever heard of Simon Sinek, start with why, people will always be inspired by your why if you know it and if you share it. And I know for my own healing journey, I needed to work through a lot of stuff to clear the clutter and the cobwebs, because I couldn't see the forest for the trees, for all of the grief that had stacked up, all of the trauma and processed trauma that had been stacking up on top of all of the grief. And so that's part of our mission, is to bring people to people like you and all of our referral network into our event on the 21st, to be able to have other tools to plant those seeds of hope. And I know a vision helps you create a future. Otherwise, if you don't have a vision, it makes it really, really hard to keep going and want to live and move forward. So I'd love for you to share whether it's your process or any tips, guidance on how can someone, especially going through this process, keeping that in the back of your mind, with having a loss of any kind. It doesn't necessarily have to be a suicide, although that's the topic of the month. How does someone create a vision when they're feeling lost, dazed, and confused?
I have a process that I use with people. I have a vision workshop, which I conduct like twice a month, free of charge, because that is my give back, to help people begin to learn a process for generating your imagination, because that's what it is. But as humans, our imagination and living from the energy of what it is that we can see, that changes lives. We get so stuck in the how at times. It's like having a business plan. And the first thing, there are people I don't share my plans with, because when at the time that they are a vision and a dream, I have friends who will say, how are you going to do that?
Right.
The fact is, the true answer may be, I don't know yet. And yet that's a perfect answer, because you can find that spirit jumps in and helps once you have a vision of where you want to go, and it's yours, and it has elements of it, of giving back to others, because the beauty of life is that we were each born unique. No two of us are meant to live exactly the same life. We are meant to express our truth. And the older I get, the more I see that coming true is any of the things that have been part of my life that I've really cared about are showing up easily as my way of giving. So I have a vision workshop, and you can find me on Facebook. You can also find me at lifechangenavigator.com. And I say that because I did sail. And if you're going to sail anywhere, you have to know where you're going. And the winds will take you a different direction. The waves will take you a different direction. But if you have a destination and you have a compass, and that's within you, you are your own greatest authority. But you can then reach your destination. And that's what I would love to have more people do, is see their vision and move toward it.
I love that. Thank you so much. There's that, what you said is so true, because it's a lot of times we believe we have to have a perfect plan. I'm a recovering perfectionist. So you have to have the perfect business plan, or you have to have the perfect to-do list, or you have to have the perfect website, or you have to have the perfect insert, whatever is the obstacle, and if you simply have the belief, the vision. And I always like to say spirit to me is like a reminder of the word inspiration. The spirit within comes from as within. So without, you just got to have the faith and the hope to keep moving forward, and then ask for help too, right? You and I are on this conversation. Part of my vision was to create this nonprofit. I've shared with you many times. I'm like, I don't know how it's going to happen. I just know it's supposed to happen. So will you come and help support me? And you and a couple other people, admittedly, I've healed a lot of my shame, so I'm not worried about saying things that are true about my transparency. If it wasn't for Carole and a couple other people and my husband, I might have canceled this event this month. I might have thrown in the towel because of fear, uncertainty, sharing my story over and over again. I had to do a lot of deep work this year to be ready to even be able to talk about the subject, right? You can appreciate that. And so I just want to thank you publicly for being a part of that inspiration, my support team. And for you sharing your story with me, here we are. And so that's great advice. And I'm going to put your website in the show notes and other ways for people to find you. So thank you so much for sharing that. Is there any other tips about writing a vision or hope or anything that you want to share with our audience?
Just know that you are worthy of all that you can imagine. You are worthy. And so often we don't say that to ourselves or to others, but you are worthy. You were born. You're here to live your vision.
Beautiful. And that's the key, living and living well. And when in doubt, reach out to Carole. I guess, is there any other locations besides your website? I'll include Facebook. Any other ways that people can find you that you want them to know about?
Well, LinkedIn, that's where we found each other. So just put the E on my first name. Yeah, Carole Hodges, and spelled correctly, you will find me.
Awesome. Yep. I'll drop that in the show notes as well. Maybe let's talk a little bit together about the event on September 21st, and then invite people to that here. So September 21st, Carole is going to be sharing a talk that day as well. She's one of my key featured presenters. The event's Saturday afternoon, 3 to 6 p.m. The cool part of this is, even if you're not in San Diego County, even if you're not in the US of A, I just got an email from someone in Kenya who says he's going to attend our live stream. So I'll give you the blow by blow and give you the information on how to find the live stream. And then anything you want to add, Carole, as well about the event and your talk would be great. It'll start at 3 at the Hilltop Spiritual Community. For the first hour, it's just connecting with people, walking around the room, meeting people with like minds, with great hearts, and a lot of free advice, tips. I'm going to have a massage therapist there. We're going to have different vendors of different styles that support mental health, suicide prevention, awareness, grief recovery, you name it. We're going to have a good group of people there for that first hour. Then in the second hour, myself, Carole, and Amy Aarons is going to be speaking. She's going to be on my podcast next week. And Amy lost her mom to suicide. And we'll be sharing and talking and giving some great tips and some wisdom. And then that third and final hour, we're going to have sound healing. So you will actually receive some healing simply by being community is healing. Hearing our conversations and our talks will be healing. I'm actually going to bring in some mantras as well as the sound healing to help bring healing to your mind, your body, and your spirit. Healing in community is so profound. And then, of course, last opportunity to maybe revisit the vendor tables and connect with people. And the live stream itself will be from 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific time. So wherever you are in the world, you'll be able to live stream it. It's going to be live streaming from this. If you're on my YouTube channel right now, it'll be live streamed there. If you don't know how to find my YouTube channel, just go to magdalenagrace.com and you'll be able to see there. It's also going to be live streaming on Hilltop's YouTube channel. So I'm plugging them on the magdalenagrace.com. All of the links on all of the things will be there, as well as this recording of this podcast. And I know, Carole, you're going to be giving a beautiful talk. Is there anything that you want to share or kind of tease people into coming to the event?
I would say just, well, a couple things you didn't mention. Fallbrook it's a small town and it's very special. And if you're anywhere in San Diego or Temecula, come on down. I think you will enjoy time there, and come a little early. You can walk around town. And I think the biggest thing is that, yes, sometimes you can say, okay, I don't want to go talk about suicide, but this is more about life. Mm-hmm. That's what we're there for, is about life and healing and breathing and expanding your life, because we impact each other. So if you're energetically expanding, those around you will feel it. So come be part of that energy. Energetically is one of the ways that we make this a better world.
Yeah. And I've gotten so many, again, going back to the mission, we just want to break the stigma. We want to be able to be a safe space for people to land. So if you want to come and you need to cry, tears are welcome. If you want to come and be inspired by 4 amazing stories, because my husband's also going to talk about how he became a ghost whisperer, and he's talked to many of those who have left us by suicide and addiction, and as have I. And so there's so many mind opening things that we're all going to share, and most importantly, heart opening. And I feel like for me, and Carole, I'd love your thoughts on this. When I lost so many people in this manner, my heart shut down. I had like a brick wall around my heart. So that's a part of what I feel anyway, is why I lost my vision, is I didn't process the grief. I didn't want to talk about it. I had guilt, shame, etc., just all blocking my lower chakras. And the heart is the gateway to the lower and the upper chakras. And for me, what I discovered, there was no way. I could say my affirmations. Sure, I could write a vision. But guess what? I didn't flip and care at the deepest core of my being, because it was just, my heart was blocked off. So for me, getting my heart open and my mind open and connecting the two was a pivotal turning point for me. So I don't know if you want to add anything in your experience about that.
One thing that I do know is that grief, despair, they are the lowest frequencies. And when you get up into hope and joy, those are high frequencies. And there's a whole lot of steps in between to move your way up. Sometimes it just takes people at all levels. In fact, anger is above grief and despair. So sometimes you got to just get angry to move forward. And it takes some understanding of that for people to be with you where you're at. Because, as I say, somebody in deep grief, getting angry could be a great thing. And you might not think so if you happen to be around them, but it can be something that's moving them up and moving them up to courage. Courage is the step that it takes to get out of where you've been, to get out of your known world and to step into the unknown. And often that is where your true vision and dreams are, because you don't know how you're going to get there yet. So you have to have the courage to step into the unknown. So being able to learn to be solid in yourself, to be able to breathe, to be able to have your own center, enables you to be with someone wherever they're at, to lift them up, to let them be there at their own speed of lifting up. So you can make a difference first by just being centered yourself, being able to breathe, being able to be whole in yourself.
That's beautiful. I just have to add, yeah, until I had a sacred rage practice, I know that I still had a lot of unhealthy anger that needed to get out from all of the grief. And we had a great podcast last week, guys. If you want to go check it out, we talked about how to work with grief in a healthy way. And there's so many great things, including, of course, Carole's vision writing workshop. So please reach out to her, everybody. Go to her website, lifechangenavigator.com. Again, go to the show notes, get access to how to reach out to her. And if you have any questions about the event coming up, or just in general, you yourself are struggling with grief around suicide or addiction related deaths, we actually have a guest on Friday's show. We're going to be talking about the recovery realm, and how someone who wanted to die even after going through her own version of recovery, there's lots of wisdom that she's going to be sharing about that topic. Please email me at info@lotusthronesanctuary.org if you need help. We're here to hopefully share resources, ideas, thoughts, referrals, and free to come and attend on the 21st as well. So Carole, before we go, I always have one closing question. I'll bring that up next, but I just wanted to give you one last opportunity. If there's any other inspirational thoughts that are coming through right now from Spirit that you want to share.
I must say, I love your quote. I want to steal that one for myself, that the most important days are the day you were born and the day you find out why. And let that be something you are open to, is finding out your why and stepping into it fully.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I don't even remember. Again, it just came through. I don't even remember what I was reading, but just a month ago or so is when Mark Twain reminded that quote. It's one I'd heard many, 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 many years ago. And I just want to acknowledge quickly, because this is what I do on the live show. Portia Summers is here with from LinkedIn, watching on LinkedIn Live. Thank you, Portia, for sharing. Never hold back anger when it comes to grief, or you'll find yourself taking it out on any and everyone in your path that don't deserve it. I did that. I can appreciate that. So thank you, Portia, for tuning in. If you saw value in this show today, please hit the share button. Sharing is caring. You might save a life. Maybe a mom or a parent who lost a child to suicide. Maybe someone who's struggling right now. True story. 2 Septembers ago, I had a gentleman who I wanted to be a guest. He was a TED Talk speaker. He had shared his story. He had attempted suicide before and lived. And it was that month that he, unfortunately, I don't want to say successful, but he took his own life in that month of September. So you never know who you can help by sharing this message. That's my last comment that I want to encourage you to consider, sharing this message with someone who may be struggling, who may want some support. And on that note, the final question I want to ask you, Carole, I ask this of all my guests, no matter what month it is, no matter what week it is, no matter what topic it is. It's near and dear to my heart to have named my podcast now over 4 years running healthy and wealthy and wise. And so when you hear that phrase, Carole, what comes up for you, or what does that mean for you?
For me, that means living a life that I love, that I'm healthy, I have enough wealth to express myself fully, and I have the wisdom to know that whatever happens in life, it's happening for me. That's it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for your beauty, your light, and shining it so bright and being a resource in this world after everything you've been through. It's very inspiring. And just a reminder, if you want to find out more about the upcoming lineup, if you want to find out more about our event on September 21st, if you even listen to this after September and maybe you're struggling with addiction or grief around suicide or any of those things, go to magdalenagrace.com. It has all of the links. It's a one-stop shop for all of the things that we talked about today on the show, upcoming events. And we'll see you again on Friday. Thank you so much, Portia. I just want to acknowledge you. I always like to acknowledge my live attendees. You can always follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube if you subscribe. You will be able to attend live on Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific. We have my beautiful friend and sister, I call her my sister in medicine, and client, who's going to be sharing her personal journey as well. So tune in or watch on the replay. Again, Magdalena Grace signing off for Healthy and Wealthy and Wise. Until next time, here's to your best health, your best wealth by trusting your best wisdom within. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe, download, leave a 5-star rating or review, and also please refer this to a friend you know who may benefit from this inspirational message. We hope to see you again. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel or join my Facebook community. And if you are looking to manifest your best health, your best wealth by trusting your best wisdom within, please go to my website, www.microdosingforhealth.com. Again, www.microdosingforhealth.com to quiet your mind,